If you're just getting into crafting or creative pursuits in general, it can be overwhelming to know, what do I need to get started? And I think most people will tell you, a pencil and paper and a dream and a will to live, but that's a little reductive and maybe not super helpful. So today, I'm gonna tell you how to build your craft supply kit from the ground up. We'll start very basic and go to a little more complex, depending on how big of a sicko you are at this point. My credentials? I also graduated from art school and work full-time in the creative sphere and make YouTube videos about crafting, so that's me. You obviously don't need credentials to... Anyways, I also asked y'all on Instagram what you have in your craft supply kit that you can live without, so we'll talk about that as well. But first, hi, I'm Kathleen. If you're new here, welcome. Like I already said, I make videos about crafting and creativity and expressing yourself, and I'm glad you're here. When I was really breaking down this craft guide, we really can build our schema in this way. Craft supplies are things that combine, glue, thread, things that separate, scissors, other scissors, y'all really like scissors, we'll talk about that later, and things to decorate, paint, mark making tools. So combine, separate, decorate, and also a vessel to keep it all in. We're going to talk about organization too. So before we get too deep into like the complex stuff or the community submission stuff, I'm just going to go over my basic, if I lost all of my crafting supplies right now, how would I build back my little toolbox from day one? Starting with scissors. Now, one thing I'll say about these scissors, these are fabric scissors. These are not the perfect scissors to me. I need to relax because they're uncomfortable and heavy. Perfect scissors to me, lightweight, kind of crappy, or even smaller. But this is also to say, I think having multiple scissors in your craft kit is totally normal and cool. And again, we're going to talk about scissors later, more of them. So we'll just leave this section and say scissors that aren't too heavy and are comfortable to hold. One of y'all did recommend in the community submissions to literally chain scissors to your desk or workspace, which I think is actually very smart. And I think using an actual chain would be pretty cool as well, because scissors are one of those things that just happens to get up and walk away quite often, right in your moment of need. Next, we need a mark making utensil. Now, I'm going to talk about two. I think you really just need two, but I will talk about a secret third one as well. First of all, no matter what kind of creative endeavorer you are, crafter, I feel like, doesn't cover everything. We are creative endeavorers. No matter what kind you are, you need a pen. And not any pen, but it's a pen that you like to draw or sketch, whatever, decorate. Pen you like to decorate with, as well as write with. Because I know a lot of y'all are journal perverts, myself included. Your choice of pen is really important. So right now, my current favorite to write and draw with is this multi-liner from Copic or Copic, whatever. 0.3, it's not too thick, not too skinny, very juicy. And most importantly, the ink is waterproof and permanent, but it doesn't bleed through my journal pages, which I do love. It's got this sleek little aluminum body, metal body goals, and it just feels really nice to hold. You don't need this pen, you just need a pen that you really like. This is just the one that I like. And I know we're talking about craft tools right now, but by the end of the video, you're going to want to craft really bad. You might even pause this video to go grab your current project. And if you need any help with learning about crafting or new skills, I've got an awesome resource for you. One thing I know about you craftaholics, you're always trying to explore more creative opportunities. I know, because I'm just like you. Heck, you're watching a video about building the perfect crafting toolkit. So let me put you on to another virtually infinite crafting resource, which is Craftsy, who happens to be the sponsor to this video. Thank you, Craftsy. I've missed you. If you're not familiar, Craftsy is your online resource for all things creative. Whether you want to learn more about quilting, crocheting, life drawing, Craftsy has you covered. And Craftsy is always adding new resources and classes, so you'll never run out of things to learn. Here are a few classes that have really struck my personal fancy, and maybe they'll strike yours. This vintage rose garden class taught by Christy Smith makes exactly the type of thing that I want on my body, whether it's in blanket form or clothing form. These abstract textural floral shapes, I've lost language. Next, look at this uber colorful sweater that you can make with Brenda KB Anderson's Crochet a Made to Measure Granny Square Pullover class. I'm imagining this in maybe like a tank top form for the warmer months. And finally, if we're already talking about building your perfect crafting kit, why not go all in and build a modular craft table with George Von Driska? We love George on this channel. And this deal is honestly kind of stunning. The first 1,000 people watching this video to use the link in my description will get a full year of premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49. Offer valid for new members only. So treat yourself to a year of learning. Check out that link and join me on Craftsy. Thank you, Craftsy. Now back to the video. Secondly, since we have our permanent option already taken care of, we need something to sketch with that we have a little forgiveness with, something that can be erased, something that isn't so loud. And for that, I love the Prismacolor Color Erase colored pencils, specifically the red ones, because it's just a colored pencil with a good eraser. That works well. This pencil does have some lore. I stole it from my workplace 10 years ago, I think, specifically from the cafeteria, because this is what you wrote your sushi order with. Sushi in the cafeteria. Surprisingly, actually delicious. So we got something permanent and bold. We've got something forgiving to sketch with. Now my secret third thing, normal pencil. Maybe replace the red guy with the normal pencil, or have all three. It's not that big of a deal. My favorite pencil, and this is really the reason why I wanted to share this, Chonky Ticonderoga, a beginner's Ticonderoga pencil. These are oversized pencils, hence the chonky, meant for people who are learning how to write for the first time. They got a really soft eraser, which I love, and the lead isn't too dark, isn't too light. It would be cool if I had a sharpened one to show you. It would be cool. The box also says premium wood. I mean, says who? Mark making utensils. I should be clear that I have way more mark making utensils. That's probably my favorite craft supply because I am a drawer at my core. But if I were just getting started, that's all I would need. Okay, speaking of mark making utensils, you'll need something to sharpen them with. So you're gonna need a nice little pencil sharpener. Nothing crazy. I like a manual one because we don't always have a place to plug in our pencil sharpeners now, do we? Preferably one that catches your detritus and has two different sizes of sharpening holes. This one only has one, so it is subpar, but that's fine, we're surviving. Okay, now we need something to put our marks upon. We need a sketchbook or a journal or something. So let me show you my favorite. Not necessarily my favorite brand, but my favorite size. Did you know everyone has kind of like a default paper size that they prefer? And if you don't think you have one, you haven't thought about it enough. I prefer something that I like to call a face-sized pad of paper. Something that's a little more square and not teeny tiny, but also not huge. Portability is important, but I also find when I use something like this size, I feel constrained. A couple great things about this journal. It is dot gridded. Can you see the dots? It lays flat and it has a bunch of pages. It has like over 200 pages, so I don't feel bad about using it. This is from Actual Source Books. This is the 150 by 210 millimeters dot grid notebook. And if you have a favorite size of notebook, let me know down below. Next, let's talk about a great combiner. Let's talk about tape. Ooh, I love tape. Everyone loves a good washi tape, myself included. If you're not familiar, washi tape is tape that is made of paper, technically rice paper, but I don't think they're all made of rice paper. It's like a masking tape, a little one. You're probably very familiar. As I already said, this one has little drawings of me running in cute outfits. However, I find for general crafting purposes, I want something a little bit bigger and a little less decorative because, I don't know, I want to use this as decoration and not necessarily as a workhorse. So why don't we just get giant version of washi tape, aka painter's tape, or just masking tape. This is artist masking tape. What makes it artist masking tape? Marketing, I think. It's cheap and you can use it for everything. Masking out edges of your painting that you're doing, taping stuff to walls because it's safe for your paint since it's painter's tape, labeling things, you name it. I really like the colored masking tape too, like the blue. You can also just wear it on your arm if need be, and need do be. And since we're talking about combiners, things that combine things together like tape, let's talk about the ultimate combiner, glue. My favorite glue is glue stick because you can use it for everything. There's a hair. I know I talk about this in so many of my videos, but one of my favorite ways to use a glue stick is to attach fabrics together, like when I'm making an applique patch. It takes so much time to baste the shapes together before you go in with your final shape when you could literally just glue them together and then go in with your final sewing lines. Great for collage, great for your eyebrows, just great. Another favorite tape in liquid form, Mod Podge. This is kind of just a crafting heavy hitter. It does it all. You can use it to glue two things together. You can also use it as kind of like a varnish on top of things. You can use it to prime surfaces, to paint upon, kind of the best. And if you need something heavy duty, permanent, might I suggest E6000 or E another 1000 number. I think there's a bunch of these. It's waterproof. You can use it indoor, outdoor. It's super glue. That's really strong. Can't believe I'm making a YouTube video about glue. Going back to community submissions, a lot of people recommended getting a hot glue gun, which I recommend, but folks really said that the cordless hot glue guns are totally worth it. To me, it feels like one of those things that you maybe don't think you deserve. It's like a little extra bougie thing, but maybe we should treat ourselves every once in a while to a cordless hot glue gun. Okay, those are my super basic craft kit items, but I do have some more specific craft kit items that I like that maybe you'll find helpful too. I do a lot of work with paper and collaging, so you gotta have an X-Acto blade or a craft knife if you want to go unbranded. My friend E said that one of the ways to really level up your crafting experience is to treat yourself to the 200 pack of blades for the X-Acto blade so that you never have to worry about using a blunt one or a dull one again. There's nothing more infuriating. Y'all had some recommendations for other craft blades too. Somebody recommended the X-Acto blade specifically with the grippy, more ergonomic handle, the Morton Schwann scalpel, or the Muji brand X-Acto blade. Let me know if you've used any of those and you like them. I have not. Okay, so talking about cutting stuff, a rotary cutter. A lot of people in the fabric and sewing world swear by these. Here's an example of one. Great for when you're cutting larger items of paper or fabric. However, I do not recommend this Fiskars brand. I find when I press too hard, when I'm cutting, it like pops out of place and it's kind of a little rickety, but I've heard people really like the Olfa brand. It's a little more expensive, but I think that might be the best option. Next, you need something to cut upon. So let's talk about cutting mats. Got a couple over here, and a cutting mat is kind of just your workspace in general. It's kind of your best friend. You can do all kinds of stuff on it. You can cut, obviously, but it's also a great place to tape down your piece of paper that you're painting on. It's a great place to just use as your workspace, maybe if you're making jewelry or something, just to have one confined area that you're like, all my craft stuff is here right now. This is my space. So you're not spreading across 1,000 square feet. Now it's really important, in my humble opinion, to get a self-healing cutting mat. One, so that it'll last you longer. This is a self-healing one and you really can't see much of any of the cuts that I've inflicted upon it. But it's also important because if it's not self-healing, like this vintage one I got in an estate sale, this is Olfa brand. If it's not self-healing, it's gonna dull your blades so fast. Not a good cutting experience. So I use this more of just like a crafting surface, and less of a cutting mat. Also, hot tip, make sure to store your cutting mat safely in a dark space when you're done, and don't just leave it on your desk that gets baked by the sun for 12 hours a day, because it will get warped and no amount of steaming or ironing seems to help. Annoying. I really want to get just like the biggest cutting mat of all time. I think that'd be great. Okay, next let's talk about rulers, straight edges. You might think that this isn't really a necessary crafting item because you could use the straight edge of any old box or book that you have around, but it's nice to have a dedicated tool so you don't have to hunt around or get creative when you're already trying to be creative. You know, my hot tip is instead of getting just a 1 foot ruler, do people in other countries have the 1 foot ruler? That's kind of the classic in the States. I would recommend getting like an 18 to 24 inch bigger one and then a smaller one, because I often find that the 1 foot is never big enough or it's too big. You know, I've had this aluminum one since freshman year of college. I did so much technical drawing with this bad boy. Speaking of technical drawing, best case scenario actually for your big guy is to get one that's a T-square as well, that has the little T on the bottom of it so that you can hook it on the edge of your workspace and make sure you're getting those 90-degree straight lines. I don't know where my T-square went. I miss it every day. Oh, also, I do think it is helpful if one of yours or both of them are clear so you can see your workspace under your tool. Okay, let's talk about paper again. I think it's important to have a roll, an abundance of just crappy big paper, like one of these. I think I thrifted this, but this is like the thing that goes on a little kid's easel. Really low quality. It's basically just craft paper, but you can use it for so many things. You can put it down as like a tablecloth under your workspace if you're making something messy. You could make your own patterns using this, like your sewing patterns. You could just use it for large scale art for hanging on the wall or whatever. You can use it for wrapping paper. Just the fact that it's a little bit bigger and you have a whole roll of it means you have all of the options open to you basically. Okay, now let's talk about small fiddly bits that most of them are used to combine things together. For example, binder clips or bulldog clips. So helpful not only for holding papers together, like holding your sewing patterns or whatever, but also you can use them as sewing clips to hold your fabric together. You can use them when you're styling clothing if you need to pin something a little bit tighter. You can use them to keep your journals open and flat. Really versatile little clip. Another combiner that I love that I think is a little underrated, if we're honest, I love a good brad. You guys know brad? They're these guys that you poke through something and then open up the back so it stays fastened. I have a brad on the back of my shirt right this very moment. You know, see? Boom. Bradley. Because the top of my shirt kept flopping open and I didn't feel like sewing another button in, so I just poked a brad through. And now it stays closed. These are also great if you want to make an articulated item, like a puppet that has moving arms. That's what you might use at the joint. Brad. And finally, my last tiny fiddly bit. Tiny black safety pins are my kind of OP crafting tool. I use them all the time when I'm adjusting the style of my clothing. I think I have some pinned in the side of my shirt right now just to adjust the fit to something I like more. To combine things together. You can use them when you're sewing, if you, in lieu of a sewing pin, if you want to use something that won't stab you on accident. That's why they're called safety pins. I kind of just love safety pins in general, just as a motif. I kind of have them everywhere in my life. So maybe that colors my appreciation of them, but I love them. Another underrated combiner that you can use in unorthodox situations, tiny stapler. I've used this on my clothes before when they've popped open. You just never know when you're going to need to staple some paper together. But the big ones, I feel like they don't need to be that big unless you're stapling all day every day. You just need the little and you're good. I feel like a stapler is kind of like a printer. You're like, I don't need one of those. And then when you do need one, it's extremely annoying that you don't have one. Other things that fasten things together, having a little collection of vintage secondhand buttons to choose from. I will never need for another button in my entire life. And what about that noise? Isn't that nice? Don't order them off Amazon. You can get bags of buttons for a penny at the thrift store, and they don't even make pennies anymore. Also, just various string or ribbon or twine, some sort of rope object is good to have around. I thrifted these shoelaces, and I'm just waiting for an excuse to cut them up and use them for something. I don't have to tell you how to use rope. I think it's self-explanatory. Similarly, embroidery floss, like this type of thread, I feel like this is a little more general or able to be used in more situations than just sewing thread. And also you can pull apart the thread to get like a single strand of it if you need to hand sew something a little delicate. And along with that, having a set of hand sewing needles as well as one big embroidery needle comes in handy. You never know when you're going to just need a slender pokey thing, not even for sewing activities, for like pressing a reset button on the back of a remote or something. I love tools and utility. I know the embroidery needle is also very used like if you're finishing a crochet project where you're tucking in all of your tails. I wouldn't know about that because I have never tucked a tail in my entire life. Would you like to go a level deeper into even more niche craft tools? Pliers, specifically 2 pairs of needle nose pliers. I didn't get them out yet. Hold on. I just got these tiny guys from like a jewelry making kit from Michael's, I think. And you might be wondering, well, why do you need 2? Shouldn't 1 suffice? You need 2 because usually you're not just holding a thing with a plier. Usually you're doing something to the thing, like opening a jump ring. And I wouldn't have been able to do that with just my hand and a plier. 2 pairs. And since we're at it, jump rings, aka just little metal rings. They're most typically used in jewelry, like the things that connect the closures or the beads or whatever. But it's good to have some extras on hand in case you need to fix jewelry. You just need to connect 2 things. Maybe you want to make a very cute polymer clay keychain, jump rings. And since we're talking about polymer clay, if you want to get into polymer clay, my favorite kind is not brand specific, it's type specific. I like the white translucent polymer clay. It comes from a bunch of different brands, but I like it because I find that when I get colored polymer clay, it's never the color that I actually want and I have to adjust the color anyways. But if it's white, I just get to add the color that I like in the first place and mix it myself, which I do by shaving chalk pastel into the white and then kneading it. That's how I made these really delicate colors on this guy. But if you have favorite polymer clay brands or other types, drop them down below. I'm curious. Okay, just a couple more of my more niche selection. So we talked about having a crappy roll of craft paper. There is a jackhammer outside. We talked about a crappy roll of craft paper, but I also think having a thicker like cardstock option is good too. Obviously it's good for making cards or like name tags or whatever, but cardstock also makes a great like stabilizer. If maybe you're making something on a delicate fabric or paper and you want to like glue it on a more stable backing, cardstock is your friend there. It's great for making stencils too. Like if you want to cut out a stencil out of it and then sponge paint on top of it or spray paint or something, cardstock is pretty thick and hardy, so you'll be able to use the stencil a lot longer than if you just used like sketchbook paper. And finally, in my personal craft guide, the last item is a designated craft space, a place where you can get as messy as you want and it's not going to disrupt your entire life. And I know not everyone has, I don't know, a 30,000 foot warehouse to craft in. I don't have that either. But the space could be just as small as your cutting mat on your dining room table. Or I really like these like drawing boards. Back to the drawing board, as they say. It's just a good amount of space. You can clip paper to the top of it. You can get paint on it, doesn't really matter. But just some sort of designated rectangle. This rectangle just acts as the boundary, even mentally, from your mess, your craft, to the rest of your life. And even if you do get messy in the area around it, when you're done or when your session is done, you can just pile everything on top of your workspace so that you can have your dining room table back. Okay, we went over our tools for separating things, for combining things, for decorating things. Now let's talk a little bit about organizing things, because we all love an organizer of every shape and size. I know this about us. So here's my process. Well, as I look around this room that's filled with craft supplies, is this my process? I don't know. But my natural inclination is to have a couple little pouches that have my instruments in them that I kind of carry around with me, and then larger like tackle box style organization that's really more for storage. For example, this adorable little pouch is kind of my bag, the bag that I can just throw into my bag, and I know it has everything that I like to use when I'm out and about. So it has my favorite sketching pencil, it has my favorite pen, it also has my current favorite color tools, which are Caran d'Ache Neo colors. These are like fancy grown-up crayons, super buttery, very saturated, and also water soluble, so you can add water and it becomes like a watercolor. My little pencil sharpener goes in here. So this is just like my basic bag. Now I have one that's slightly bigger that quote unquote has everything. So this is the bag I'll grab if I'm like going on a craft night with my friends and it's like we're gonna need a little something of everything, or I'm going on a long trip where I want to have all my art supplies. It's basically a DOP kit. My friend actually made this for me custom with the Fuji. Thank you. But this has Sharpies, it has alcohol markers in it. It has a pen of every color, a pen of every shape. Big charcoal stick. This has quote unquote everything. So everyday bag, everything bag. And then when it comes to storage, it's basically tackle box time. Like for example, I've had this purple guy for so long, high school, it just has all my paint in it. And this isn't something that I would like pick up and carry with me to my workspace. I would just like come to the tackle box, grab the paint I need, and then just take that with me. My storage also is not perfect right now. I'm facing the problem where I feel like I have a little bit of everything everywhere. There's not like one designated place that's like, this is all my painting stuff, this is all my drawing stuff. It's like a little paintbrush here, a little paintbrush there. So I think we're kind of in need of an overhaul, if I'm honest. And now it's time to get into the community recommendations, because I have a lot of community recommendations for organizations specifically, and I trust y'all when it comes to these recs, because I know you're freaks. You're a freak like me. Alicia Ramirez on Instagram said that using a diaper bag is actually kind of genius for craft supplies. 1, they're super spacious. 2, they have tons of compartments. And 3, they're really easy to clean. Like the inside is usually that vinyl material that you can just wipe out. Perfect for craft supplies or diaper supplies, whatever. Other people recommended using clear storage for like your long-term permanent storage so that you can actually see what's in there, or else you will be forgetting. I know this about you. Along those terms, I thought this was a great submission. People recommended a label maker. I love those vintage ones that have like the round disc on top. Ooh, that's so cool. So you can label all of your areas, so you can know exactly what you have and where. Right now, I just write what it is on my masking tape, and that works too. That's label making as well. We had a whole slew of sewing specific recommendations. So people recommended getting just a beast of a sewing machine, which I was surprised to see. I thought people would just say, just get your basic beginner sewing machine. But a lot of people said, I wish I had gotten the nicer one first, which is interesting. I have like not quite a beginner, but like a midline brother sewing machine, and it's great. No complaints. They also recommend if you're getting a sewing machine and you don't know how to sew, you should definitely find a local class to learn, because I hear so much from people that are like, I would love to sew, but I'm intimidated by the sewing machine. But once you learn, it's just a tool to combine 2 pieces of fabric together. It's really simple. You're gonna feel unstoppable. So find that class or someone to teach you if you don't think you're just going to look up YouTube tutorials. Okay, other people recommended sewing pins, and specifically a way to store them, because the last thing we want is sewing pins flying willy-nilly across our workspace. I really like the big weighted plush pin cushions. They're easy to transport, but also those little magnetic dish ones are good too to have on your workspace. And you can use it as a sewing weight if needed. Okay, back to our scissor grind. We're gonna talk about scissors again. A lot of people said you gotta get fabric scissors that are only used for fabric if you're gonna be sewing. Okay, I believe you. A lot of people recommended the Ginger brand. People also recommend getting the tiny snips scissors. I kind of want some of these, the ones that are like this. On a similar note, if you're doing paper collage, the Fiskars titanium tiny scissors are the choice, allegedly. Other people recommend getting those bird scissors for a sewing kit, just for the vibes, just for the whimsy, and curve tip scissors for getting those hard to reach places, like if you're snipping on the inside of a tiny little channel or something. If you're into more heavy duty crafting, you might want to get miter shears as well. Basically, the strongest scissors you've ever seen in your entire life. Let's talk about heat erasable pens or fabric pens. These are pens that you use to draw on fabric that then are erased when you iron them. A lot of people recommend the friction heat erasable pens. People also love these for journaling, including myself. I have one somewhere. However, some people also say that these don't totally erase. Like if your object gets really cold again, the lines will come back. So people also recommend the Lang & Kone heat erasable fabric pens. Also recommended that you get a high quality seam ripper. I don't know what makes a seam ripper high quality, probably just not the $2 one from Michaels. I think mine is like the $4 one. Works fine for me for now. Let's talk about collage vibes, tweezers, angled ones, angled long ones. So good for picking up and putting down little fiddly bits of paper. When you have glue covering your fingers, nothing worse. These are also good for rethreading your little tiny mini serger without going insane. If you do want a collage, people recommend getting just a box of old magazines off of like Facebook Marketplace to act as your starting fodder. X-Acto blades, we've already talked about that. A little paper punch that rounds the corners, a hole punch, and a paper cutter, like so. Lots of people also really recommended double-sided tape, which is new to me. I mean, I know what double-sided tape is, but I've never been like so horny for it. Specifically, the Scotch Extra Strength double-sided tape is the GOAT. Sounds good to me. Folks also recommended the glue tape or glue dots for journaling specifically. People like the Tombow brand glue tape. It looks like white out. It comes out in a little dispenser. Somebody said that they would be buried in their coffin with it if they could be, which I don't see why you couldn't be. It's your coffin. Okay, talking about pencils and pens, so many people love the Blackwing pencils, including me. If you don't know Blackwing, nice quality pencils, but they're specifically known for this like little skinny flat eraser they've got going on at the top. And people also love the drafting pens. So like this guy we talked about earlier, they're called drafting pens because back in the day, like architects would use these art pens to draw up their blueprints and their drafts. A lot of people really like the micron ones, specifically in the 005 size. That's like the super duper skinny scratchy size. Also, a lot of people recommended having a good eraser, specifically a kneaded eraser. So like a putty eraser like this. I'm kind of an eraser hater, and I always have been. Like even back when I was in elementary school and I'd be writing something, I would just cross it out if I didn't like it. And I was scolded. But look at me now. Some things never change. Let's talk about markers. A lot of people love alcohol markers, the big permanent kind. People recommend the Ohuhu brand. I think that's what those like big giant sets that people get. I'm a Copic fan, always have been, doesn't really matter. A lot of people also recommended the Crayola Super Tip markers for just your average crafting workhorse marker or journaling marker. I love those bad boys too. Sharpies got a lot of love. And then posca pens, which if you aren't familiar are paint pens, either acrylic or oil, depending on which ones you have. I have the acrylic ones, these guys, and they make super high coverage saturated marks on almost any surface. So a lot of people really love these, or just paint pens in general, but Posca is definitely tried and true. Similarly, also a white jelly roll or Sakura gel pen. This is what people like to use for like little highlights in their illustrations. It's white on almost any surface, which is hard to find. Now let's talk about paint. The comments were very conflicted about where to spend money on paint and where to go the budget route. Here's what I think. If you're not like a painter, like if you're just needing paint as a craft tool to add color to almost any project, I think you can go pretty cheap with acrylic paints and just get kind of your basic set where you can mix colors as you see fit. Like I said, if you're not doing like fine portraiture or something, I think you can go a little lower budget here because most paints will have pretty good coverage and you'll get a lot of it. If you want just starter brush sizes, I mean, it depends what you're using them for, but I would go for like a flat, like house painting vibe for a large size, maybe like a 2 or a 3 inch. And I'd go for maybe a chisel tip. I don't know if I actually have any chisel tips readily available, but it's basically the same thing. It's like a flat, but just with an angled top instead of a flat top. And a round. A big flat, a small chisel, and a small round, I think is a great place to start. Kind of got your bases covered in that way. If you do want to spend more money, I would recommend maybe opting for a nicer watercolor palette if you're gonna do watercolors, because by their nature, watercolors are more delicate, they're more transparent, so you want something that still has good chroma, good saturation, but also a smooth finish even when you add a bunch of water. So I love the Kuretake watercolors. They come in these green cases and these little pans. As you can see, I'm pretty messy with mine. You don't have to be super precious about it. I'm mixing colors left and right, but you can get almost up to like a gouache level of opacity, like very flat if you want to, or you can go very washy and delicate. And then for our fiber arts friends, for knitting, people really love the Clover brand bamboo interchangeable needles. I know that's a bigger investment to start off, but people seem to love them. And then for a crochet hook, there wasn't a lot of specificity about material, but people did specify that the ergonomic handle ones. The ones with the bigger grips are much better. Okay, honorable mention, things that aren't really craft supplies, but I think are helpful to have in your collection. Swiss Army knife, just to have in your bag, kind of at all times. Specifically one that has a little pair of scissors, a little tape measure, a little poker, like a pick, and I just feel cool having one. Somebody recommended having a jar full of buttons and broken jewelry. We already talked about buttons, but the broken jewelry too, just in case you ever need to fix your own jewelry and you'll have little pieces to kind of cannibalize from it. You can take it apart and get like a little bead off of a necklace to string across a card that you're making for a friend. Maybe you want to add a little bling to a boring item of clothing and you just want to sew a bunch of buttons or little charms on your shirt. Great. A printer. We already talked about how it's like you don't really think you need a printer until you do need a printer. I don't think you need something super nice. A bone folder. Great for our bookbinding friends, our zine makers, our collage artists. A bone folder is you can use to fold edges really crisply. But guess what? You can also use like a pottery tool, just a plastic tool that's rounded. Does the same thing. And then a never-ending supply of googly eyes, just to put wherever you see fit. And that's it. Start to finish building your craft supply closet from most basic to most complex. And I know I didn't cover everything. So if I'm missing something super important, please drop it down in the comments below, or something super niche, or something that maybe you didn't think you needed until you got it. And then you're like, how did I ever live or craft without this? Let us know. I love these type of building a collection or what's in my bag type of videos. So if you want some other ones, I'm gonna link a couple more down below. There's a great styling kit video from Chloe that I found super interesting, what she takes with her on set when she's styling clients. There's also a great what's in my journaling bag video. I'll drop a couple down below, but feel free to recommend others as well. And if we get enough submissions, maybe we'll do a part 2. If you wanna take part in my polls or questions in the future, feel free to come follow me on Instagram. That's where I typically ask those, at Kathleen Illustrated. That's also where the behind the scenes shenanigans occur most days. I have a hankering to go make some stuff, so I'm gonna get out of here. I appreciate you watching and being here. I hope you're taking care of yourself and those around you. And you're very stinky, and I love you, and goodbye.